and open source is all about co-development, right? So it's all about community, people coming together, helping each other, working on source coding, working on solutioning, etc., etc. That's what we call it as co-development, right? So we have 3 eminent panelists, okay? The beauty of this panel is that we have Hitesh from Infosys, and he is from MOSIP, okay? He has been helping the community co-develop, okay? So he's on the giving side, okay? And then we have Cherinet from the National NIDP, Ethiopia, National ID Development Program, okay? And he has also been helping us co-develop, okay? I mean, by the way, I don't want to use the word co-develop, co-developing, okay, right? And we have Sovann, Dr. Sovann, right, from Cambodia, his team has been doing a fantastic job in a very critical solution called eSignet, right? And we're all together in this panel discussion, together, talking and co-developing, okay? All right, so let's get started. So what I'll do is, I'll probably start with Hitesh, who has been in the sending side. So Hitesh, you have been working on leading the Android registration client community development. Can you talk about what is this Android registration client community development is all about? What have you guys done? And how did this community development really work together?
So, Android Reg Client is a Flutter-based Android registration client, which is primarily intended to be used in integrated biometric tablets, which are probably of a form factor of size of, let's say, a laptop. The main motivation behind developing this was inclusivity. Like, we want to cover as many people as possible while enrollment. Like, one of the requirements was from Ethiopia, that they have a lot of remote regions where they cannot set up fixed registration centers, which incur a lot of capital expenditure, and it's infeasible in remote localities. So they wanted a solution which they can carry door to door and enroll more people. So that was the primary motivation behind developing Android Reg Client. And we had support from our team, NIDP Ethiopia, and kind of had a lot of interactions on what features we want to add into the client. And presently, I guess you can see the demo of the same client from our partners in the demonstration section.
Thank you, thank you. Cherinet, I think from an NIDP point of view, there were 2 things that happened. One is you and one of your colleagues were part of the Android registration client development, okay? And working with Hitesh and a team of people in the community. And I think yesterday there was a session on USSD, right? That was also an activity that was done, right? Now, I want you to give us some ideas about how did you start as a community development activity, right? How did you go about doing things? What were the interactions like and stuff like that?
Okay, thank you, Krish. Thank you for having us. First of all, let me introduce myself. You have already done it, but I am Cherinet from the engineering department of the National ID program, or as we call ourselves, the FIDA team. I would also like to introduce Mikias, who has been working with us in the project. Yeah, he's over there. Yes. So we started out the Android registration client development because of the limitations that we faced during enrollment with the desktop registration client. These challenges were in terms of mobility, in terms of power consumption. So to fix this, to address these issues, we hoped and we came up with the idea. Actually, it was our executive director's idea, Mr. Yudahe, to utilize the Android registration client. And by that time, I think MOSIP only had an MVP version of Android registration client. And we tested that. It was not enough for enrollment purposes. So we moved away. We moved into co-developing, into the idea of helping MOSIP develop the Android registration client in collaboration with the NIDP team. So that's how it started, the idea. And for the USSD, it would be better if Dagmawi was here to explain everything about it, because he has been working on it. Yeah, there was only a functional service for the USSD, but he was able to collaborate with Sanat from MOSIP side and to bring out, to demo the USSD service as well. Yes.
Thank you, Cherinet. Dr. Sovann, a slightly different perspective in terms of open source development. I want you to, it'll be great if you can talk about, you had a purpose. It is a purpose-driven development for you. You wanted to have an extension to eSignet, okay? You could have actually taken two different routes, typically, like any other country. Please develop for us, give us the solution which is ready-made, we will take it and we'll use it. That's one way of doing it. That's what people would do. But you took the route of proactively telling us that we have the developers, we have 20 developers, we can work with you and we can co-develop with you. Why did you choose that path? And what were the benefits that you gained out of it?
Thank you, Chris. I think this is an important question, and I would like to share my perspective on this too. To me, MOSIP has reached a milestone of 110 million. That's not something come out as a normal path, right? You must have some things behind it. If I do it on my own, I have 20, 30, 50, I can do it probably. But I might miss some knowledge, best practices that MOSIP's team has come along the way. I have to reinvent the wheel, right? And then I have to admit that we co-develop with you, but that doesn't mean that eSignet is not good enough. It's good, but it just missed some features. So why don't we just take it, complement it, and then give it back to you? So we co-create, we co-develop, and we co-deploy. So I think this is a good perspective toward open source, because this is the nature, this is the spirit of open source. You do it, you open it, people use it and improve it, and let's do it together. I think this is the best way to grow. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, open source, although the co-development model looks great, we all know that. I'm sure that everybody here, they know about what an open source model is all about, right? Now, open source comes with its own difficulties. One of the major difficulties in open source is communication. Although we have all forms of communications, there are email, there are chat communications, there are everything that's available, right? But it's all about planned working model that we all know, right? So this question is open to anybody. One of you, anybody can come in, you can add to the other person's remarks and stuff like that. How did you go about communicating with each other? I'm not going to say MOSIP team here, because MOSIP is also part of the game. What were the challenges in communication? How did you go about communicating, understanding, and working with each other in the MOSIP community?
I probably can start first. I think there are many challenges when we work together. One of them is we are in different places. The team is distributed. One is in Cambodia, one is in India, and we have different time zones. Friday evening would be challenging for some teams, right? We also have language barriers. I have to admit that Cambodian people, we don't speak much English, even me. So communication is still also another problem. Team that just come and join on a joint missions, they don't know each other before that. You cannot do a team building activity. They don't know each other. Miscommunication happens from time to time. The good thing is we have laid out, I would say it's an effective process, working process or workflow. So we have everything communicated, documented properly. All the code has been code reviewed, shares. We And finally, I think the best part is we share the same visions and objective. So we work toward that. As long as we have the common objective, we can work toward it. Yeah, that's all from me.
As for from an NIDP side, I think MOSIP is known for over-communicating, right? So we were having so many meetings. We had daily stand-ups. To the point, it becomes very anyway. So we were having over-communication. Unless somebody understands the concept being spoken or being discussed, meetings would not close. So we were able to compensate the distance, the geographical location, and the time difference, the time zone difference, by over-communicating. That's what I think.
Hitesh, I just want to ask you a very specific question, the same topic. Now, the difference here is, while Sovann and Cherinet were contributing, okay, Hitesh was more on the maintainer part of it. In open source communities, there's somebody called as a maintainer. So what the maintainer would do is to accept code contributions from the community, review it, okay, help the community, and then accept the code and merge that inside, just to make sure that it's all properly done, right? That's a maintainer's job, right? Now, I would look at you as more of a lead community contributor, helping people, okay? So as a maintainer of the Android registration community development, how did you motivate the community to work on it? Because it's always possible that somebody might not come on that day, they may not be on time. It's all voluntary basis, right? How did you really motivate? How did you review the code? How did you say that, oh, no, this is not the one, this is not the one, this is not the way we should do. We should, please change, please change, please change. How did you go about getting all the good contributions from the community?
When we started, we did start with a lot of POCs, smaller POCs to explore on what approach we have to take. So initial phase, I guess, the NIDP team and our core team also, they were working on a lot of smaller POCs to, let's say, on transliteration, for an example, a module. Then how the app would display on the tablets, and how it would work in a multilingual fashion. So a lot of those POCs we created, and we also wanted to reuse a lot of code from existing setup. So we did that, and that was the phase when we used to set up our meetings at maybe 12 p.m. IST, because it was feasible for all of us.
The timing was important.
Yeah, the timing was really important. At least the time zone difference here was not a hindrance for us, because we could set up at a convene once a day, and at least have our thoughts pour over. And once we crossed that stage, then we started picking up user stories, and one by one we started working on it. And as and when we got feedback on improvements, let's say, like even after accepting, let's say, the code changes, when our QA is taking this builds and tests, we also got continuous feedback from them as well on, let's say, this particular not usable on mobile. So then we had a larger MOSIP community also helping us out, let's say the UXD team, QA team, our development team, and of course NIDP. So we had to communicate with all factions within MOSIP to bring out Android Edge client in the shape what it is today.
That's perfect, that's good. I just want to touch base on the other aspect of open source community development, not just in MOSIP. Technology, programming language, okay, architecture, design are very important in anything for them. Coding comes last, right? So I know that open source community, not everybody is in sync with all these together. In a corporate kind of an environment, you have the bandwidth, you have a planned approach, you go step by step, and then you finish your activity. That's a planned approach. Somebody is monitoring somebody is looking into how the work is progressing. In your case, everybody's interest is different. Okay, you have your interest. Cherinet has his own interest. Sovann and his team has a different interest. From a technology point of view and from a design perspective, how did you go about starting? I mean, how did you converge on what technologies to use in terms of platform, programming languages, debugging tools, etc., etc.? I mean, was it told by one person saying that, oh, this is what you should use, or it was a discussion among yourselves, some kind of a democratic way of convergence? How did you go about doing this? Anybody can answer this question.
We'll start with Android Reg Client. So Android Reg Client is currently being built on Flutter. So we had a lot of initial discussions on whether we should go with native or a multi-platform route. In the end, we chose a multi-platform route, and we chose Flutter as a platform of choice. Okay. And the primary intention on choosing Flutter was it's a mature platform, and there is also a possibility that the same code base we could utilize in future to, let's say, not replace, basically evolve our desktop registration client, or provide a web-based registration client, so that there is a single code base which is providing all three modes of working for registration client. Presently, we are just supporting Android as a platform, but there is always the intention to evolve beyond that.
So you guys, it was rather easy for you to converge.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
Okay. Let's hear from others.
From the national ID program perspective, we used Flutter. We came to the decision of using Flutter because the older registration client was done with Java, the
Yes.
programming language, and fortunately, myself and Mikias were, I would say, good with Flutter. So MOSIP was very considerate to recommend and to give us the option of using Flutter as a development tool. Flutter is a mobile application development framework which is relatively new. And as Hitesh said, we would want to build for multiple platforms. So we would want to utilize one code base to several platforms. So the same code base would work on iOS, on desktop, on Linux as well, also web, right? So that's how we chose the development framework. Other than that, I think other tools, there aren't any other tools, but for debugging, and you asked for debugging, we were using the same debugging tools that have been being used in the past. So that's how we chose development framework.
It's very interesting because the point that you raised makes me feel that if it was the regular MOSIP team which was allowed to continue with the development of the Android Reg client, they would have continued with Java. Because, MOSIP team has got this Java language and they would have continued in one way, right? You're saying that you guys came in as a community, right? And it was discussed within the community that we use Flutter as an alternate platform because it is device agnostic, web agnostic, desktop agnostic, whatever you want to call it, okay? And everybody converged together because you had the knowledge ready-made and you brought in that knowledge and everybody accepted that and then continued. Is that what you're trying to say? Okay, that's the real power of community development, isn't it, Cherinet?
It is.
Okay. You want to add anything, Dr. Sovann?
I might have a different approach here, not specifically about with MOSIP. So every time we want to choose a solutions, we do some due diligence before that. So based on that, we project it into 3-5 years, and we also project our resources with that. There might be 2-3 open source that are pretty much similar, but we would choose something that we have enough manpowers. We are a small team. We cannot really accommodate, we don't want to sacrifice much, to be honest, but we want also to compromise based on the performance and the effectiveness of the system that will bring back to us. So each time we do a due diligence, we project the resource and we choose based on that. And we also look at how the software will evolve in the next 3, 5, 7 years, right? There are a lot of open source. I'm a fan of open source, but I have to admit that not every open source will stay there for the next 10 years, right? So based on that, we choose the architectures that we are comfortable with and we see the futures of it. Let's say we are cloud native now. If you do something based on the old style, I would not go with it, even if I have enough manpower, right? So all of these parameters bring together the final decisions for us.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think we touched based on few important open source contribution points. We did not cover licensing and stuff like that. That's not the area of my expertise here. Okay. However, I want to open up for Q&A. Okay, because we need. I'm sure that there's a lot of questions from you guys. Okay. The floor is open for question and answer. Please go ahead. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, team, for your presentation. My concern in code developing is efficiency of the different participants. How are we able to work on that?
If I understand your question, you're talking about efficiency of people working in the community. Anybody wants to take that?
Okay, so I think I heard yesterday the beauty of open source is that it has so many contributors and it goes into so many people's eyes, and it's most of the times it's hard to write a buggy code or a poor quality code and to get past. So MOSIP team has a very it's a well-versed community of developers. So adding the other developers into this ecosystem help it bring more input into the development, more quality into the development. I would say it helped in code quality and in the efficiency by a greater yeah. So I think it is better if code development happen most of the time. And MOSIP has been doing this for the last 6 years now, and our input helped a lot. That's what I think.
Cherinet, you're saying that since the code is getting constantly reviewed for all the external eyes, not just the community, the whole world, right? It is getting better and better and better. That increases the quality of the code. Did that answer your question? Okay, perfect.
Thank you. My name is Ibrahim Mukhtar from Guinea. I'm the technical leader of the identification program of Republic of Guinea. First of all, thank you and congratulations for your accomplishment. I'm a bit curious. I heard that you've developed a USSD client. I would like to know the use case that is covered. That's the first question. The second one is related to the Android client. I would like to know the devices, the biometric devices connected to that Android client. If you've been working with some manufacturers or you have been reusing the one developed for the Windows version. Thank you very much.
Maybe the USSD question can be taken offline outside this, because it's not relevant to the topic if it can be. But I think the second one.
No problem. I just heard about the USSD. I was curious. Okay,
yeah, sure.
No problem.
So maybe it can be taken offline.
No.
The second one, which is on the biometric tablet devices, maybe.
So we've tried to keep ourselves as much vendor agnostic as possible. So we have designed so we had a specification called a secure biometric interface, which was being used with our desktop reg client. We updated it to be supported on mobile tablets as well. So this specification is used by our biometric device partners to build their own SBI applications. So a build of Android reg client can work with any tablet which is compliant with an SBI. So there is an SBI certification scheme which vendor goes through, and once they are compliant with that, they should more or less automatically work with our reg client. So that's with that. And regarding biometric support, so currently we do support face, iris, and four-finger slap scanners, which is basically all the modalities which MOSIP supports. And you can find in the partner ecosystem that there are tablets which are integrated with all these three modalities presently available.
I just want to add, because I was also part of the community for some time, is that when the community is developing together, they don't have the devices with them. Okay, right? So how do you really code for biometrics? Is always the question. That's why I think MOSIP has something called as a mock biometrics. They're not really real biometrics, right? So the mock biometrics were used to code and share the code. And whenever the devices were, whenever the vendors and the manufacturers were ready with the software equivalent for their biometric devices like tablets, and they were easily integrated. So the mock biometrics were the one that were used as part of the community development effort. That gentleman.
Hi, my name is Uday. Thank you so much for your presentation. I guess my question is to all of you, or any of you who might want to answer. But you would mention that you took feedback from specific user cases, and because the Ethiopian and Cambodian experience are so different in terms of what they're using the tech for. Ethiopia are using it for the whole national ID project, whereas Cambodia are using it for eSignet. I was wondering if you could give us some examples of what these kinds of user cases were, where you required going back to the drawing board, or improving the tech in some way to have more inclusion or more mobility.
So one of the things which we are currently working on is a very simple thing, which is calendar. All of us follow a normal Gregorian calendar across the world. We do not have any issues in interoperability whenever we travel. Ethiopia has a different calendar. So that is where I guess we are on a drawing board on how to support that as well, because we want our application to be used here as well, right? So that is one place where we are currently looking into to accommodate various kinds of calendars which can be used across different locations. That's one aspect. The other aspect is basically transliteration. Another important aspect where we are constantly evaluating various various libraries, various techniques through which we can achieve from any language to any language transliteration, because that's really important while registering, because as we know that there are a lot of languages and a lot of people, even in Ethiopia I think so, there are a lot of languages being used, so it helps in inclusivity. So these are the two aspects where once we interact, we get some feedback and we go back to drawing board to basically accommodate those changes.
So Jeremy from OpenSPP, how do you make sure that the solution you're building for your country can also be useful for others and not be too linked to your things, right? Because this is helping to create the community around your product and pushing it.
So I'll speak about Android Reg Client, then I'll hand it over to Dr. Sovann. So the Android Reg Client which we are building is a reference implementation, and it basically can taken the UI specification, which is a common UI specification wherein you can detail out your data which you will be collecting. Let's say like demographic details, documents, biometric, and rest. So you can design a UI specification according to your needs. Some countries may want to collect a set of fields, another country may want to collect a set of biometrics. So all of these is configurable. So our application does not have a defined UI for the core component, which is enrollment. It is all server driven. So a UI specification which was working on their desktop reg client is directly compatible with our application. So we are working in that aspect that it should be interoperable in any country. We do currently we are trying to integrate a specific requirements from country which are configurable, which are not part of the core product. So we want to keep it separate from the core platform.
To me, there are two different parts. The first part was mentioned by Hitesh already. So we have, at MOSIP, we have the UI specifications, and we also have other specifications. And then during the implementations, we also have other conventions and specifications that we need to follow. I have to admit that sometimes the Cambodian team missed it. But then, luckily, we also have the code review part. Then that's where another perspective from the MOSIP team jumped in, and they might catch it. But in general, we are happy with what we have been doing, and I think it's pretty efficient. At the start, you might miss something, but as you move on along the ways, the MOSIP team has built their experience on it, and we rarely miss it for now. So I don't think it might not be a big problem. The only problem that I see is not about that, but it's about the context of the countries itself. In Cambodia, we don't use email. When we first start with the UIs, we use email for that. But then we say, no, email is not possible in Cambodia. We use only phone number or Telegram. We don't use WhatsApp. And that might need adaptations. And that is hard for the developer to get to know in advance what are the contexts of that specific countries. And I think that is still a challenge for us.
I think we have ran out of time. So we have come to the end of the session. Can we give a big round of applause to these gentlemen? I just want to conclude this session with very important announcement. So we have, I don't know how many of you know that there's something called as community.mosip.io. If you have a laptop or a web phone, you can go now. Type in community.mosip.io. All the community members are there, right? You can ask questions, you can seek answers, but you can also help others with your expertise. Okay, because what happens in the community, ultimately we all know, is over a period of time, as you interact with the community based on your work, you become proficient in one or more areas, right? So it's always a give and take relationship in any community. So what we encourage you is, please help us, please help others, give, take, and add value. That's the whole idea. That's how we can actually sustain the MOSIP development activity, right? We don't want to call ourselves as experts in MOSIP. We have done to a certain extent, right? We will continue to contribute. We would like all of you to come to us and contribute. With that, I close the session. Thank you for coming, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.